To a meeting of the Town of Barnstable Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. Today is October 10th, 2023. This meeting is being recorded by the Town of Barnstable and will be available on Channel 8 after the meeting is concluded. The agenda is on the town website. Welcome, everybody. And Chuck, if you would call the roll, please.
I will. Lillian.
Here.
Hector.
I'm here.
Chris.
Here.
Neil.
Here.
And Chuck is here. So we have enough people for a quorum.
Thank you very much. Jackie thought the meeting was yesterday, but so she's not here today. So we are, is there any public comment? And I see that Betty is here, so I'm gonna call on you and see if you want to say anything before we begin. Okay. Then moving ahead, we're happy to have Kelly Colopy here today. She is doing the CWMP and is the communications director for DPW, and we are so happy that there is finally a website. So Kelly, welcome, and it's yours.
Thank you so much. So it looks like I can share my screen. So I'll actually pull up the website. Just give me 1 second here. All right. All right. Can everyone see the website, my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for having me. I'm really excited to be able to walk you through the website and talk a little bit about what we're doing specifically at DPW in terms of communicating the comprehensive wastewater management plan. I've been here for almost a year now. It'll be a year in November. And I have to say there were a lot of great communications tools that Lynn's team had already created before I onboarded in this role. And these last 11 months or so has really just been a sort of deep dive in improving what DPW is putting out in terms of communication. So leveraging those tools like the Barnstable Water Resources website, and also taking into consideration all of the public feedback that I receive. So, you know, for those who aren't familiar with me or my role, a huge portion of my role is really acting almost like I say almost like customer service, where I am talking with our residents, our business owners, our second homeowners on a daily basis, whether that's through email, in-person meetings, or of course, phone calls over to DPW. And a lot of what we did to improve this website was solely based off the feedback from those residents here in our town, basing, you know, even just this homepage off of sort of the most frequently searched topics, and then also the sort of storytelling approach that we've taken to the redesign of the website. So I figured.
Sorry, could I ask a quick question just for background?
Yeah, of course.
Is the conversation that you have with residents and taxpayers something that is responsive or proactive? In other words, do you go to them or seeking input, or is this all they can't wait to tell you what they think and what you ought to be doing and clarifying?
It's honestly, this last year has probably been about 50-50, a mix. Obviously, some is reactionary on my part, especially when I onboarded, around this time, last November, really just kind of getting my feet underneath me and seeing where some of the holes were in terms of communicating this project. Right. And then a lot of it is proactive, especially when it comes to meeting with homeowners associations, various other residential associations. I actually keynoted the Barnstable Realtors annual breakfast this year as well. So really taking some of the conversations that Griffin and the team here at DPW had in previous years, and evolving those relationships. So really, I would say this last year has been 50-50, definitely a mix of of the reactionary, and just hearing sort of letting folks vent, letting them ask their questions, and then also in a very proactive approach in terms of educating some of the associations. And then a whole separate sort of aside would be when we're implementing new traffic management patterns and plans. All of that is very proactive. I identify the entire sort of zone, as I like to call it, of all of the businesses, schools, areas of impact, and then proactively go out and speak with those business owners and residents. So it's certainly a mix. I hope as we kind of go into year 2 of me being in this role, it becomes much more proactive, especially now that I feel like we have a really, really solid footing in terms of how we're using the tools that the town's communication department has created, and then how I've really been able to expand upon them. So that's a great question.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'm also one who loves to document, and I love numbers. So since I started on November 19th last year to today, I document every single resident phone call and email that comes in that I directly handle. So it's easy for me to pull stats. I've done that for counselors in the past, in particular when they've had questions about Finney's Lane, for example. How many complaints have we had about road conditions? I can pull up those stats and say, out of X many calls, this percentage is due to road conditions. Or when we were struggling to really nail down a traffic management pattern last year with so many various projects on the road, I was able to quickly identify what percentage of calls were related to detours. Obviously, a vast majority, and I can get you the exact number if you're interested, probably I would say confidently about 80% of the calls we receive are related to sewer connection. Where is my property slated in terms of the CWMP sewer expansion project? And what does connection look like, including the costs? So that really informed a lot of the updates that we made to this website. So I'm happy to kind of do a Q&A approach if that's easier for everyone, or we can just simply walk through the revision of the site and where we can find information. So I totally leave it up to you to really dictate how you want this conversation to go. I see it as super collaborative. So
all right, Kelly,
makes sense.
Would you
all
just
this talk
go ahead.
all this talk about communication with you, what's the best phone number for you and the best email for you?
Sure. So my email would be Kelly, Kelly, .Collopy, COLLOPY.
Yeah.
And that's at our typical @town.barnstable.ma.us. And then you can always reach me through the actual DPW phone number through our office line. But what probably makes the most sense for folks is to just call me directly. And I always encourage this. And that's my number at the 774-487-5782. And that's my direct town cell phone number. That's what I give out when we are hosting public information sessions or when I go in and speak with an association or a business owner. Quite honestly, It's easier for me to just get the calls rather than have it triaged through our admin system.
And my other question is, what was your training to get this kind of role? Because I hear so many great things about the website and about you. What's your academic or business training in?
So thank you. I appreciate the positive feedback. I went to school for traditional public relations.
Yeah.
To Roger Williams in Bristol, Rhode Island. I stuck on that PR track for probably the first, big chunk of my career. I worked for a boutique consumer electronics public relations firm. So I was very into technology. And then met my now husband, who was born and raised in town and was never leaving. So when he convinced me, which wasn't very hard to do, to relocate to Barnstable, I was very fortunate that Cape Cod Healthcare had a brand new position open in digital marketing. So along with my traditional PR experience, I have a wealth of knowledge in social media, web. I wouldn't say web design necessarily, although there are so many tools that make this look easy now, but certainly SEO, copywriting, SEM, digital and social marketing.
Great.
And then most recently I was at Cape Air. So very ingrained in the community here on the Cape.
Good. Thank you for that.
Well, we're really glad that you're here. So
thank you.
In response to your question, why don't you roll us through the whole website?
Sure.
And then we can ask you questions afterward.
Yeah, and feel free to interrupt too. I have no problem with that.
As you can see, we don't have any problem doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great approach. So I think this is the homepage, so barnstablewaterresources.com. We are talking internally as well at DPW. I'm very fortunate where I have a communications budget. So we are going to be doing some proactive promotion of the website as well, some media buying. I do have a background in media and advertising. So definitely some media buying in the local community. So I want everyone to kind of keep that in the back of their minds as well, as that, we have this beautiful site. We promote it across all of our town channels, but we certainly need to do more to get the word out. Printed mailings, media buying, as I said. So we'll certainly be working on a really strategic promotions and advertising campaign for the site. But this is essentially the homepage. You'll see the top sort of navigation bar here are really the major cornerstones of the site. So the wastewater plan, phase 1, sewer connection, costs. We'll walk through all of those. But the homepage really has a storytelling feel to it. So it's a scrolling site where as you scroll, you'll continue to read more information. There's some interactivity here with some of the widgets. In this yellow box right here, when I talked earlier about getting direct feedback from residents and business owners, this really informed the decisions of what do we want these major icons to be. So the first being, am I eligible for sewer service, new sewer service? Right now, this icon and link takes you directly to the assessor's database for the property lookup tool, where folks can type in their address or search by last name or even parcel number and determine if they are right now identified to receive sewer as part of phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 of the CWMP sewer expansion. We are working on a more interactive platform that will allow folks to be able to search by address and tell them if they are in active phase 1, what project they're actually identified in. But as of right now, we just tell folks, in our conversations with community members, just to simply reach out to me. I can actually do that work for them. So after they've determined if they're in phase 1, 2, or 3, they can then call DPW or call me directly, and I can walk them through specifically what project they are identified as part of if they are in phase 1. Below that, we have how do I hook up? This will actually connect over to the sewer connection page that I'll show you momentarily. Same thing with right below that, anticipated costs, links to our cost page, which also includes financial resources that we can walk through in a moment. Road closures, links over to our news and updates page, which we'll also look at. That includes an embedded map from Waze. We do have a Waze for Cities partnership, and we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. And then FAQs, self-explanatory, links us over to our FAQs portal, which has recently been redesigned. So really right here at the top of the fold, you have access to the full CWMP plan, and then what I would say are really the top 5 questions we get asked most often. The sort of who, what, where, when, why, and where can I get more information? Where can I get additional questions answered?
Kelly, on that right side where you have all of the questions that residents can answer, are you tracking the volume of?
Yes, we are now. So originally when the site was built, we didn't have Google Analytics set up yet. So in working through the CWMP annual report just about a month or so ago, I actually went in, I worked with Lynn's team, I worked with the folks from IT to make sure that we can actually start tracking this appropriately. And it's as much as it would have been nice to have benchmark stats, it's even better now because really we haven't kicked off a full multimedia advertising campaign to promote the website. So we'll still have quite a few months of benchmark statistics to then compare to after we've run an ad campaign and we've pushed traffic to the site, how much more traffic are we getting? So the short answer to the question is yes, we are tracking Google Analytics now. We only have about 2 months of analytics, so still a ways to go before I'm comfortable trending some of those behaviors on the site. But we know that these are certainly, just from our conversations, the most asked about topics.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to find out the level of interest that the residents have.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the great thing about having actual analytics tracking on the website as well is we can pinpoint anytime we run an advertising campaign or we send a mailer out, we can give specific QR codes or URLs to actually track traffic generated just from those efforts. So it'll also help us as we're moving forward, because we're only really coming up to year 3 of a 30-year plan. It'll really give us a lot of leverage as we're making communications decisions down the road.
Thank you.
Yeah. So moving down the page, we have what I call right there, a big call to action where folks can sign up. We have a separate water resources, what we call community currents newsletter. Originally, we were running it sort of on a monthly basis, but then everything was sort of status quo for a while. So right now it's sort of as needed. We'll send updates out. I actually have one planned for later this week to talk about a few different things that are happening in the community. The annual report being posted, Governor Healy's tax relief bill, which includes the tax relief for Title V septic systems. So just, a wealth of information will go into that newsletter. In the past, we also used it as sort of a real-time communication when we had major traffic management changes. And then I also did run several months ago, sort of a test run of getting feedback for the website redesign as well. So there's a lot more that we can do with that email list, but we have over 1,800 folks subscribed. So, and it's grown quite a bit year over year, just in the updates that we did send out last year. So again, nice big call to action right there on the homepage, just below the fold. And then we get into the storytelling of their load, how many watersheds in Barnstable are a part of this plan. All of this you can click off, and it essentially drives you to the full CWMP plan, the full plan. And then we get into our overall 30-year phase map. And we'll
Excuse me, Kelly.
Sure.
Back on this map with the 7 yellow dots, can you just tell us what we're looking at these? Yep. I guess those are 7 watersheds. Can you say a little bit more about what's shown there?
Yeah, so essentially what we're trying to show visually is the breadth of what the CWMP is looking to achieve is ultimately reducing nitrogen load in those 7 watersheds. They're impaired. Obviously, we have TMDLs that we need to reach. So it's just more of really trying to put into context for people who don't know what a watershed is or don't really understand the nitrogen problem. What are we talking about here? So it's just
what does number 1 denote? Does that have a name or a word attached to it? And 2 and so forth.
So number 1, it is kind of hard to see on the map, I'll be honest, and you can right click and make it larger, but number 1 would be the Lewis Bay watershed. Number 2, Halts Creek. Number 3, Centerville River. Number 4 would be,
I see those labels. Okay. Yeah, you have to look more closely.
You do.
And then 7 is Barnstable Harbor.
Correct. Yes.
And what is actually the definition of a watershed, if you could explain that?
So essentially, it's how the water's ultimately running through the embayments. So when we're looking at, the more scientific answer would probably have to come from Amber Unruh, who's our senior project manager. But when we're looking at our watersheds, it's the total look of how the water is ultimately filtering to our coastal waters or coastal embayments.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then as we scroll down, we look at the entire 30-year phasing map, which we can look at in more detail on the wastewater plan page. This sort of sets the stage for what are we doing. So we kind of follow the story from we have a problem with nitrogen pollution with our watersheds being impaired. Here are the watersheds we're trying to protect, ultimately trying to heal and then protect. And then how are we going to do that is really this next content block. And that's looking at the 3 10-year phases that make up the CWMP sewer expansion plan. And again, being able to click off to phase 1.
Right.
And then down below, I'm not sure why this isn't loading right now, but down below is just a latest news widget. So sort of our top 3, I'm trying to refresh that, but our top 3 news items. So these are fall construction resuming. We had some public comment we were collecting on Craigville Beach, and then also public comment for Mother's Park. These all link off to deeper news stories. And then you can also click to view all recent news, which we'll also look at the news and updates page. And then lastly, sort of as a bookend and end cap, is just, again, hitting on that messaging that water quality is everything. You know, our primary source of nitrogen pollution is coming from the wastewater from septic systems. We know that. We can look at the Cape Cod Commission for further data. We know that to reduce nutrient pollution in our embayments, we need to pursue sewer expansion along with innovative and alternative solutions as well. And we have a primary focus on protecting the water quality in our ponds, our drinking water, our lakes. So this is just a section where you can get more of that sort of environment and the feel good, I like to say, the feel good part of the story. And this just clicks off to a video that Lynn's team created prior to me being here. That is really just a great overview of the CWMP.
Yeah. Kelly, what the town manager has been talking about the PFASs a lot lately, and its impact on the water quality. And so far, it hasn't done that. But will you be addressing it, because he has made it's become a much more visible issue?
Yeah, so one of the things we are doing on this site in particular is building out additional modules and pages. We do have a water quality monitoring page that we can look at. Primarily right now, it's focused on cyanobacteria in the ponds and lakes. We're going to expand that to include embayment monitoring. And then actually just this afternoon, we were talking specifically about a water supply page. We do have some of that content in our Learn More section, but making it a little bit more front and center, where we can cover things like PFAS, we can cover things like water supply in general. There's a lot of misinformation out there about water supply. So really working on building out some of those internal pages so that we can bring some of those issues front and center.
Thank you.
It's certainly a living, breathing, evolving website, but that is absolutely a topic that we've been discussing internally that is a high priority to make sure that we develop content around that.
Kelly, Betty Lucky here. Can I ask you a question? You mentioned it here in this last piece about the innovative alternative systems. What are you going to put in there? I just think it's so important because so many people, especially in my precinct, are never on any sewer plan. I know the sewer plans are maybe looked at every 5 years, but there's quite a few folks that are never on a plan. And there seems to be more interest in the innovative and alternative systems. How are you going to just get into that area for folks?
So I think the best place to probably start would be with the content that we just released in our latest CWMP annual report. Amber is working on a number of different projects, many of which are spearheaded by Barnstable Clean Water Coalition. And right now they're in sort of what I understand is almost like a final data collection phase. So we're probably about halfway to the point where they'll be able to make a strong recommendation regarding the type of IA system and what it can do. There's a ton of data in the annual report that Amber was able to share from Barnstable Clean Water that we'll be able to translate into more easily digestible content on the website. But beyond just the IA systems, also really featuring a lot of the projects Amber's working on, like the dredging, the floating wetlands treatments, the pond and lake management reports and plans. Those are also aspects that are kind of hidden in the site right now that really do need to be brought to the forefront so that folks can see that even if, to your point, Councillor Ledke, you aren't anticipated to receive sewer, here are all the things we're still doing to improve water quality, including, of course, when
Yeah, everything froze for a moment there. I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
We can
Betty.
hear you.
Yeah, everything froze. But anyways,
Ca-
that's great. I love that you click and you go to the tax, page, because a lot of the folks here, because the sewer is going to come through part of precinct 3, and people ask me, I say, go look on your tax bill, and it says right there. So that's great that you're connecting them to that resource. But again, then I think you're just starting this, but for those of us and other residents, they're going to click on this and say, oh, well, I'm not in this, so I'm out. It would give them something to engage them in the process. If you click on that and you're out of it, do you just leave the site and say, well, I'm out of the game? Or, is there another way to hook those people in and get them engaged? Because I think we all should be engaged in very many levels. So that would be something to think about is, let's not lose the folks that aren't on the plan.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. And I think as we build out the water quality monitoring page in particular, and as we continue to build out some of the internal pages, absolutely. I mean, I'll speak with Amber about what she's comfortable. I mean, the annual report is live. Anyone can download it, and I'll actually show you where you all can find it this evening as well. I think there's a lot of information in there that we can easily break out onto a page that can act as that initial hook for folks who may not be identified as receiving sewer.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Kelly. Fantastic.
So then again, just working through the homepage, you'll see the same content block on a lot of the internal pages as well. This is what I call sort of the most frequently asked questions. So again, is my property located on a sewer expansion route? Will I be contacted by the town prior to sewer construction? What costs am I responsible for? Do I have a choice? Is there any payment assistance? A lot of these questions are also answered on our more robust FAQs page. But again, as people are scrolling through the site, I wanted to be able to just sort of capture anyone that may sort of had trailed off with, again, some of those most frequently asked questions. And then the big one, which we've been receiving a lot more often, is regarding watershed permit regulations. So this is great to be able to give folks an update that, yep, as of September 1st, we submitted our application for a watershed permit. It's in review with Mass DEP. And most importantly, we submitted that application with the request for a watershed permit covering the entire town of Barnstable, regardless of, to your point, Councillor Ludke, if a village or a specific neighborhood is anticipated to receive sewer or not. So that's just another proactive measure we're taking to really protect all of our residents in the town. We believe, after our very comprehensive review of the regulations, that our CWMP will comply with all the requirements of a watershed permit. And it's been with DEP for over a month now. And a question I get asked often is, how long is the review process? When are we going to hear? And that's tough for me to answer, but they haven't come back with anything yet. So I don't know if no news is good news, but we'll certainly continue to keep the community updated. And I know that Town Manager Els did share that in a recent town manager communication as well, that, that was an arbitrary deadline that we in DPW gave ourselves, was September 1st, knowing that the new regulations came out at the end of June, beginning of July, and very pleased that we were able to hit that. It was a very robust application process and a heavy lift, but thankfully we had the CWMP, which really is the backbone for that application. So we're excited and hopeful, and we'll continue to remain positive and update folks as soon as we hear more from DEP.
And Kelly, it's Betty Ludke again. Can I ask you one more thing?
Sure, of course.
It just because we're in the CFAC meeting, and I certainly hear them on the radio, and other people have from Avangrid, where they're talking about, we're giving millions of dollars for your sewer. They tie in, and I know at our last town council meeting, there was a comment made, and Dan Santos said very clearly that we're not interrelated with the wind farms and the sewer program. It might be nice to have that as a frequently asked questions. It gets into maybe a touchier, but I think it's important when the radio waves are flooded with these ads from Avangrid saying all the millions of dollars, and we're helping, if not almost comes across to the maybe uneducated person, oh my gosh, they're paying for our sewer. So maybe that should be tied in. And I don't know, I'm not on the CFAC, but maybe the other folks here could comment on that, because it's something I hear from my constituents when they hear these ads.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've heard them too. And I walked right into Griffin's office and I said, wow, they're making it sound like the town is, that this is a joint project. And it's definitely a hurdle that I face in communicating and having just even, very candid conversations with residents. There is certainly a lot of confusion around it. I think looking at the last, town council meeting, the last two town council meetings really, and hearing the dialogue there, I think there's certainly a window of opportunity to be able to address that a little bit more proactively on the website. And that's something I think Lynn and I can probably talk about offline. Obviously, we'll want to get anything that we put up on the website. We always run by Town Manager Ells as well, make sure he's comfortable with it. Even with just how we address the Title V regulations and the watershed permit regulations. So hearing the dialogue that's happening at town council meetings, I do think that there's, even if it's as simple as directing folks to Avangrid's website to learn about the project, although sometimes I'm hesitant to do that as well, because it's not always as clear there.
Yeah, so Kelly, this is Hector. So as you may have noticed, I was one of the commenters at the last town council meeting, and I'm on the steering committee of Save Greater Dowses Beach, and it's certainly been our contention over the last 14 months that Avangrid wants everybody in town to think that they're partnering with us to install our sewers, and the reality is, and this gets to Councilor Lutke's point, that the reality is we, the taxpayers, will be covering the costs of the sewer project. Thanks to some state aid that came through late, it came through in the spring, we did not have to have a tax override put on the ballot this year. And Mark Milna says, I think Mark said that we've bought ourselves a couple of years, so it might be fiscal 2027. But I think Councilor Lutke's point is very well taken, that we should stress that it's town tax dollars together with state and federal aid, to the extent the town can get it, that will cover the cost of the sewer project. And to the extent you can dispel any of the marketing and PR and spin that Avangrid has put on their radio ads, and they make these comments in their town halls. They want to conflate the sewer project and the offshore wind farm. And the reality is, as I said, that we, the taxpayers, will be paying the cost of the sewer project, and those people who have to hook up, they will be covering the cost of the hookup.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that's a great place for us to at least start addressing it proactively on the website. It's just simply breaking down, how is this paid for, which we do allude to on the cost page, but it's more from the perspective of the property owner. What am I responsible for?
Right.
I think that's a great place to start. And then I can say, confidently in public information sessions and various association meetings, when Griff and I are there, we're very clear on most of the collaboration between these projects and town sewer is truly just the construction sequencing. Right. We have to sequence in a way that allows us to get the deepest utility sewer in first. Right. But we also try to, keep ourselves out of the conversation as much as we can as well.
Right. But I would just recommend not linking to Avangrid's website. They would like nothing more than the traffic, for you to send people there, and I would not do that. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Absolutely. Yeah, I will take that back, and like I said, Lynn and I can connect offline and talk about how we might want to message that and get Dan and Mark's approval. And I think that's an easy FAQ we can add, is just taking it from the perspective of how is this paid for, and through the tax dollars, and through and Mark Milna on this call would be a great resource to help you think about how to spell out the various revenue items that would go into paying for this. Yep, absolutely.
So Kelly,
that's great feedback.
Yeah, I want to follow up on your homeowner's sewer connection guide.
Yes.
Does that address all of those questions that you have on just to our right?
Yeah, so actually what the homeowner sewer connection guide is going to be is it's honestly quite large, about 40 pages already. And it really breaks down every single thing you could possibly need to know about connecting to municipal sewer, all the way from why do we need to do it, to how the actual connection process is going to play out, which we can look at on the sewer connection page as well, how to find a licensed sewer installer, how it's being paid for. So really plays into both what Hector, you're saying, as well as Councilor Ludke, in terms of how it's actually the infrastructure is being paid for, what resources are available for property owners to help them financially with their connection costs as well. And then does have some FAQs in it. We're preparing a draft for our most recent draft for internal review. We're just waiting on a few pieces, one being the timing from the Board of Health on what is the time frame they're going to give property owners, and then that guide will be ready to download, and it'll also be a printed mailed copy will be available to folks that are identified for first connections this coming spring as part of the Strawberry Hill Road project.
So it's going to be a very thorough discussion of everything you ever wanted to know about sewers.
Yes, very thorough. And then we do have a front and back executive summary version that will start proactively mailing out to folks at the beginning of a new project as well. So they'll know that they're going to have this big, robust document coming a year or two later, but they'll have a very abridged version to at least give them some context as to where they are in the connection process before construction even breaks ground for their project.
How do you anticipate the distribution of the hard copies?
We'll definitely have to look at printed, mailed hard copies, which will get pricey, but I do have a communications budget, and we're talking about a couple hundred parcels at a time. So it'll be good to test it out with Strawberry Hill Road. Lynn and I have also had discussions about making copies available at various town buildings, and then also hosting. One thing I've discussed with Dan is hosting workshops at some of the at the Centerville Public Library. I'm actually have one coming up in December at the Barnstable Adult Community Center, where we can walk folks not only through the website, but also through the Homeowners Connection Guide, and being able to have hard copies available there as well. And some of it, honestly, might have to be grassroots, door to door. It's what we do often with our traffic advisories or access when we have potential limitations to access on some roads, especially neighborhoods with dead-end streets. We go door to door before that construction starts, and we let folks know what to expect. So we're not shy. When I say we, I mean myself and the project team for the CWMP. We're not shy about going door to door and hanging mailers in, sleeves to make sure that folks actually get the information they need in a timely manner.
Now, as you make all these presentations to homeowners associations and civic groups, what kind of feedback are you getting with regard to the support for the overall sewer project in town?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say very easily 90% of the feedback is very positive. Once you explain to folks what the problem is, and most people do know, even if they don't know the full breadth of how we've gotten to where we've gotten in terms of nitrogen impairment or nitrogen pollution, they understand that there's an issue. They know that this is this isn't an issue that we found overnight. It was a generational issue with our reliance on septic systems. We're talking 2-3 generations, probably even more. And it's not going to be solved in a year or 5 years. It's a very adaptive 30-year plan. So once you give them that context, and you also talk about the fact that sewer connection does offer them some flexibility, it does add to their property value, people are much more receptive to it. There's, of course, different communities. You could be talking to a group that lives along the coast that money isn't an issue, so the connection costs don't scare them. But then you can be talking to a residential association where they hear, a potentially $10,000 assessment and another $5,000 to $10,000 for connection, and that is jarring. And that's really where continuing to add to our financial support and financial services page or under the anticipated costs is really helpful. Once they hear things like the Cape Cod Aqua Fund, they hear about the tax relief credits that are going to be available, then there starts to be a little bit, it starts to be a little bit easier for them to digest and sort of understand when we talk about how they can, finance their sewer assessment as part of their tax bill. And we talk about what options there are there. It becomes a little bit more manageable for them. But I would say overall, in terms of the project, it is widely positive. especially once you clear up some of the misinformation, or you just simply show people where to find the information, which is really the next step, like we talked about earlier, is now proactively getting this site in front of more people, making them aware of it. Because, no matter how much we push the information out on social media, on newsletters, on the town website as well, until the construction is happening in front of their door, oftentimes people won't look for the information. And that's something that many residents have admitted to me in conversation. So I think now it's taking the proactive approach of saying everything you could possibly need to know about sewer connection and the CWMP can be found on this website. And if you can't find it, here's a resource. Here's an actual individual that you can contact who can work through those questions with you.
This is really a wonderful program to inform the residents, because if and when we ever have to have a referendum, based on what you've said, once they understand it, they are much more supportive of it.
Mm-hmm.
Way back when we had a referendum, and it was just very limited information, and it was voted down. But I think this is really important that people understand it. They know what's coming and everything they ever wanted to know, and they've got your telephone number so they can call you up.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself because there's so much I want to do in this role, but one of the things that I did at Cape Cod Healthcare that I talked a lot about in the interview process was what we called brand journalism, corporate journalism. We had I was part of the team that actually launched Cape Cod Health News and ran the email newsletter and the website. And essentially what that was, for anyone who isn't familiar with it, was a blog, really, an information source where every story that was on that site featured a Cape Cod healthcare professional as the expert. And it was a great way to intertwine correct messaging and explain complex issues in a way that the average, patient could understand. And that's certainly a goal of mine that I've talked with Dan about, and Rob and Griffin about how do we take a similar approach in our own local media where we can tell those stories. And a lot of it's pay to play. If we've got to pay to place a sponsored content story, Cape Cod Healthcare did it too. That might be an avenue to explore, because there's so much great content between Lynn's team and what we have here on the website that there's certainly an appetite for educating the community on why this is needed. And to your point, once they hear the why, it's a lot easier for them to sort of accept that it's happening, and we need it to happen if we want to continue to live and work and play here, in the town of Barnstable and really on Cape Cod as a whole.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it because this is really fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I certainly want to be cognizant of everyone's time too, so we don't have to go through all the other pages, but I will just show you very quickly. If you were to look at the phase 1 projects page, this is essentially where you'd be able to see our current phase 1 project map, and you can easily just right click and open it in a new tab if you need it larger. It also links to the CWMP. So it gives you a sense where if you're in phase 1, you can kind of identify where your neighborhood may be, and then ultimately call me and I can give you the final say. And then also our adaptive schedule. So once someone calls me and they say, okay, Kelly, I know I'm in phase 1, can you give me a better idea? And I can say, yes, your property is identified as part of Old Yarmouth Road. You're currently in survey. We anticipate survey to be completed by the end of this calendar year. Then your project's going to move into design. While it's in design, you'll start to hear from us in the town, specifically DPW, more regularly. We'll start to host public information sessions. We'll send mailers out. We'll give you an idea of what the construction sequencing and process is going to look like. Then we'll move into construction. Your construction's anticipated to last, 2 years, which means you'll likely be eligible for sewer connection late 2027, early 28. So you can start to give them a real time frame. And that also has been really helpful in terms of discussing the costs with residents. When they can say, okay, I've got 5 years before I'll likely be looking at a sewer assessment coming my way, it makes it easier for them to start planning. So having this on the website has been very helpful. And quite honestly, this is typically the presentation I give when I'm speaking with residents and associations, is I walk them through the website and I show them the map we just looked at, and then I open up the phasing, the sequencing timeline as well. And it really starts to paint the picture of what they're looking at in terms of timing for their own connection. Which then leads us to the sewer connection page, which I love because I think it just boils it down to 8 simple steps. You know, you're going to complete a sewer connection form pre-construction. The town's going to break ground on construction. And then you really don't have much responsibility until step 3, when the health department actually issues your order to connect or the notification. And this is something I've spoken with Mark Milne about, as well as working into here. At that time, you're also going to, look out, you're going to be contacted about your sewer assessment, and you're going to be asked, how would you like to pay that sewer assessment, and start to get folks thinking about what the timeline is going to be for not just connection, but how they're going to start paying for the assessment as well. And then walks them through, again, the hiring the licensed sewer installer, going through their own connection construction, the inspection process, septic abandonment, and then ultimately utility billing. So being able to, in very simple terms, boil it down to 8 steps has also been helpful in making it digestible for residents. And then this is what's really expanded on in the sewer connection handbook, the homeowner's connection guide. These 8 steps are broken out into pages that really get into the nitty-gritty of what happens during each step of the process. And then we also have information where they can download our preferred sewer installer database, our list. We update that list pretty frequently. More about the connection timeline, and then again, ending with our FAQs. And then what I think you all will probably find most helpful is the cost page as well. Right. And this is where folks can review the sewer assessment front and center if they wish to. And then down below, we break out what the 3 main costs are for a property owner. So your assessment, your connection cost, which includes the septic abandonment typically, and then your utility billing. And then below, financial support. So right now we have the Aqua Fund with a link to the Barnstable County's website. In my presentation to the Barnstable Realtors Association, I also learned from Cape Cod 5 that they have a program specific for sewer and water connection. So we included that information as well. And then most recently, thanks to Mark Milne, we included information about the governor's tax relief bill, specifically about the the Title V tax credit. And again, linking to the trusted source, which is mass.gov, where folks can learn more. And then again, ending with sort of our general FAQs. And then we can jump over to, just to give you a quick look at water quality monitoring. Again, right now, this page is really geared towards the cyanobacteria monitoring to really feed educational information to our ponds and lakes folks. We keep all of our water quality reports housed on this page. And then we also link off to the Association to Preserve Cape Cod's cyanobacteria monitoring map. We break down the problem. We send folks to Cape Cod Gov if they wish to learn more about monitoring across the Cape. And then we even show them what the icons look like on the signage that they may come across at their local beach or pond. So again, really just giving people as much information as possible. And because of the scrolling site effect, they can kind of take the information in as they wish.
Kelly, Betty Ludke again, had a couple questions.
Sure.
Have you run this through legal? Are you sure it's legal for you guys to recommend installers? I just remember some years ago when I was looking at some installers and I went over to the town and talked to some folks there. They said, well, I can give you a list of names. I don't know. I'll just leave it to you to run through legal on that. And my same question would be for the Cape Cod 5. Perhaps they have a program, but I don't know that that is really a something that would pass the ethics test to be putting that on our town site. I'm just saying, I'm sure you've been running this through legal, but I would think those two things especially.
I'll certainly ask Karen about Cape Cod 5. I mean, in the opinion, I mean, obviously I run everything by the team at DPW as well. And the opinion has sort of been, if we can give folks information on how they can support themselves financially through this process, as long as it's vetted and we know it's accurate, you know, I'd rather them have one place to find it than have to go searching for it on their own. But that's certainly a good point about Cape Cod 5. I can make sure that Karen's comfortable with that. In terms of the installer list, that list was generated well before I even came into this role. It's posted on the town website as well under the DPW page. So I would assume that it has been blessed by legal. I know that every installer that's on that list has been vetted specifically, has had to meet a series of requirements before they're able. It's not like they're just adding any installers to that list. I mean, they've been heavily vetted by Griffin and leadership at DPW to ensure that not only they've done the work previously, but that they have good reviews, they've got other supporting recommendations, and that they're really capable. Because to that point, and honestly, Lynn can probably speak to this as well, I've received communications from installers. I know Lynn received a postcard at one point. There are some installers who are being really proactive, and they're mailing flyers out to folks talking about sewer connection, and they're doing it to residents that aren't even eligible for connection yet. I mean, I'm not anywhere near being close to connecting to sewer. I'm probably 5-6 years away. So trying to get everyone focused on one list that the town approves is really the goal, is to make sure that we're telling residents, here are vetted professionals that we're comfortable with you using. They're going to have to take a road opening permit out with us anyway.
I don't know. I just would do a legal review on that. That even makes me question it more, that the town is vetting these through some sort of process. I would think that process would have to be published. I think you get into antitrust. I'm not a lawyer, but that seems a little bit iffy to me, to be doing that. But again, it's your thing to check. And the other thing I wanted to just piggyback on what Lillian was saying earlier about the override, because I see that not as an if, but a when. And it goes back to my initial comment to try to hook everybody into this. And probably the page we're looking at right now, the water quality monitoring, would be a great way, because people will say that, you know, why should I pay an override? I'm not getting sewers, you know, so it would be a good way, again, when we kick this off, to make sure we really strive to engage everybody at some level. And perhaps the water quality monitoring would be a great way to do that, because that can show progress, that we're actually having an impact. So those are my couple of things. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to that point too, one of the things we talked about earlier was this page is going to be, we're going to expand. We're going to go beyond ponds and lakes and really start including content on the embayment monitoring as well. So that it's not just focused on cyanobacteria, but really looking at the embayment water quality, which is sort of the last thing aside from FAQs. You all can certainly check that out, but we have redesigned this page to break out FAQs into separate sections. So sewer connection, all the various questions, sewer assessment, all the questions related, understanding the CWMP. But in the reports and documents page, we have not just our annual report being shared both years and all of the comprehensive wastewater management links, the plan links, but we also have related sources. So again, the sewer ordinance linking to that, the Cape Cod 208 plan, which we've referenced highly, especially because part of our consistency determination is the requirement to submit an annual report. But one thing that we recently added was a link to the Cape Cod Water Quality Data Portal. So I think, Councilor Lidke, this might be another area where we can really hook people in, because ultimately, as part of our consistency determination with the 208 plan, we're required to submit embayment monitoring data to the Cape Cod Commission. And oftentimes we'll be asked, and I think actually, I thought I said Neil on here, I think we talked about this more recently, is where does that data go? And it goes to the Cape Cod Commission, and they actually aggregate all of that into this really robust water quality portal, where you can click on the watershed, you can click on sub watersheds, and you can see essentially the status, the health status of that water resource. So that's going to be another place where, you know, we can't take their information necessarily, but we can certainly point people to it and use that as a real hook for them to see the progress being made as we continue to implement the CWMP.
I think that is amazing, Kelly. That the 208 plan needs more visibility. It needs more understanding. If you can get people engaged with that, I'd love it. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
So that's
I agree with what Betty said, that irrespective of when the sewer is coming to your neighborhood, water quality remains paramount. And ultimately, we will have to have a referendum. And if the residents understand that water quality is part of the 208 plan, it'll make it so much easier to gain support for whatever kind of bond or override we decide we're going to have. So that's an excellent point. Before we leave, and we thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, I'm going to ask the other members of CFAC to see if they have any comments or questions. Chuck?
My only comment is I think it's a spectacular resource, and really appreciate all the time and energy that's going into keeping citizens informed. This is awesome.
Yeah. Neil?
Well, I think this is great. And I can say that Kelly has been unbelievably responsive when I've had questions, and is a great town resource, which I really appreciate. But this obviously demonstrates DPW's commitment to communications, and is really excellent. And I think I'm very impressed.
Chris?
Not to beat a dead horse, but I'm impressed as well. I think the website really does a good job of delivering information in a concise and clear manner. I'm looking forward to seeing how you expand it, but I think it's off to a really good start.
Yeah. We've been waiting for something like this for a long time. Thank you. Hector,
so
do you have any further comment?
Yeah, I would, again, I'd beat the horse some more. It's excellent. It's hard to know how you know, how many hours you have in a day to maintain all this. Kelly, do you have people helping you with the web design, or do you do it all yourself?
No, so I was really fortunate that a lot of the foundational work was done
Yeah.
by Lynn's team. And then when I say that I'm not a designer, this site is built off of WordPress. And if you've ever used WordPress, which fortunately I have at Cape Cod
What is that? It's
rules,
built off of what?
It's built off of WordPress, which is essentially a web, design, web hosting platform.
Uh-huh.
And I fortunately had a lot of experience with WordPress in previous roles. And
Right.
there are a lot of pre-built templates that make the design part easy. And then for me, it was just, okay, well, let's focus on Cape Cod imagery, town of Barnstable imagery. Some of this, yes, I did create, but yeah, the upkeep of it is certainly the hard part. Anytime something changes, you've got to change it on multiple places across the site. But really, I think that the hard work has been done. And now it's the proactive approach we talked about of really making sure more people know to use this as a source of truth, as opposed to listening to what their neighbor might be saying, who may have misheard something, or, a social media post from, a brother-in-law who might not know everything that's going on either. The goal really is to make sure that this becomes the single source of truth for folks regarding the CWMP.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sympathetic to your desire to be able to post things like a list of vendors to do sewer hookups and that sort of thing. But I think Councilor Lutke asks a good question about just making sure that Karen Nober of Town Legal is okay with stuff like that. I think it's great to have that kind of information, but we just need to be aware of the legal pitfalls. And then my final request would be to, in the fullness of time, when you have some time, to the extent you can clarify some of the misinformation that's out there with respect to the offshore wind projects. There's only one of the three projects is under construction now. The other two are a long ways away, but we have to make sure that we're not spreading, misinformation that Avangrid is spreading on its radio ads, for example. And just FYI, we Save Greater Dowses Beach wrote a complaint to the state attorney general office about the radio commercials, saying that they're going to be giving the town hundreds of millions of dollars. The reality is much different from that. So I think it's be very, very careful about amplifying anything that Avangrid says. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have both of those noted as well. I know Lynn and I are going to connect tomorrow to talk through some of those items too. So those are easy things that we can implement pretty quickly, which is always
Right.
the nice thing about an adaptive website.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Kelly.
Just for your basic information, CFAC has been knee-deep in the sewer project from the very beginning, and so we have been actively supportive of it, since not only do we do the budget, but we went way back. I guess it's 10 years ago when we actively supported the original sewer trust fund. So we've been at it, and we have worked with WRAC, and so you can bounce anything you want off of us. We're
That's
probably
good.
more knowledgeable of CWMP than many of the other committees. But thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will certainly take you up on that offer as well.
Yeah, and we have your phone number and your email, so we will be hearing from us. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
Kelly.
If I could, before Kelly leaves, this is Lynn.
Yep.
I just want to say a couple of things. There's a reason why it's not called the CWMP website or the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan website. It's the Barnstable Water Resources.
Right.
And that's because it is not just, when you talked about PFAS, when we talk about water quality, the water quality monitoring, people look to the website to get the latest update of which beaches may have issues, or which lakes and ponds may have issues. All that information is posted at the site. So we're constantly trying to find other ways to drive people to that site. Next, Kelly is phenomenal, as you can all tell. We are blessed to have her here, and she has been able to take engineer ease and turn it into the language that everyday people can speak. And her presentations during town council meetings on a monthly basis have been clear, concise. She lets people know what percentage of the project is, where it is, whether or not it's in design or construction or anything like that. And we get a lot of compliments on the fact that those presentations are so clean and clear now. And they're not just words on a page. They're graphics that you can completely understand. And then this June, we added the My Barnstable app, which has been a tremendous help, not only for road construction, but also for water quality. And I did an audit earlier today, and since it was launched on June 13th, we've posted 135 notifications to that app. And the biggest users are recreation with 34, road construction with 24, Sandy Neck with 22, and water quality with 15. But our residents asked for it when we did the citizen communication survey, and they were my age group, 61 to 75, were the ones that said that they wanted an app. And it's been really, it's been a hit since we brought that to the towns, and Kelly is masterful in how she uses it. So I just wanted to bring those things to your attention as well.
Thank you. That's a great point, especially about this topic is much more than just about installing sewers.
Yeah,
It's
the whole
about
water
maintaining our water quality overall.
Yeah, I think everybody is very concerned about the water quality. So, point well made. Lynn?
I also want to say that it was CFAC who contributed greatly to the first round of FAQs on that webpage, because we created the webpage,
Right,
I think June of 2019.
right.
And it was CFAC that helped us because we were going through the whole sewer assessment ordinance and everything else. And a lot of the questions and responses came from CFAC. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and
Thank
actually that's
you.
a good point, Lynn, too, because we didn't go into too much detail on the wastewater plan page, but we have that original document. The CFAC FAQs are posted there. So those are still available front and center on the wastewater plan page as well.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Now, did Mark have a comment? So somebody wanted to comment, but
Was that
well,
Mark? Was that
Right,
Mark?
he's
I don't
gone.
know who it was.
It's fine. I'm gonna email her, but I think to alleviate the concerns that, some of the comments made this evening about, downloading a list of preferred contractors, I would agree. We should stay away from the words preferred and recommended and just say, download a list of licensed installers in the town of Barnstable, because that's what they are. They're all licensed within the town of Barnstable, and here's easy access to that list for your benefit. So I'll email Kelly that comment.
Yeah,
So in
that's-
order to be a
that's-
plumber in the town of Barnstable, you need a license from the town.
Well, it's a licensed by the state, I believe, not the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
I'm
have a
sorry?
state license to be a contractor.
So, but you don't get a license from the town. It's a state license. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, moving right along, we have the other treasurer of Barnstable, my old friend Lynn Poyen. How are you? If you could tell
Very
us,
well, thank you.
if you could tell us a little bit about how our little CFAC report could
Well, I
You-
want to thank Neil very much for the work that he did in preparing an outline of information for getting the word out about your FY24 report. Today, and I will share my screen as well. Today now that fall walking weekend is over, we put it ahead of our in the news section of the website.
Mhm.
So it's right there. And then we also,
There it is.
your suggestion, we added it to the
CFAC.
yellow bar at the head of your
Ah.
committee page. So that's been done. We are going to be putting it in news this week. And it will be also shared through our social channels. We are thinking about doing an app notification. We're just trying to figure out how to word that. And a press release was semi-drafted, and we're more than happy to send a press release out. We just need to know who the contact is that would do that. We do about 200 press releases a year. And for some, depending upon how many go out during the course of a week, sometimes the press thinks that we're spamming them, which we're not trying to do. And as Kelly mentioned, she has a big budget. I don't. There's, sometimes you have to pay for things. And that's what we did last year with the communications survey that we sent out. And this year we're sending out a flyer with the census mailing. That's just reminding people that the app is there and how to, download it to their phones, things of that nature. We also have a program called Town Talk that's through our government access channel. And we're more than happy to maybe have Mark play the host and interview one of the CFAC members so that it's just a conversation. And we find that our sweet spot is really a 10-minute. If you go over 10 minutes, people tune out. But we're more than happy to welcome folks to utilize that tool that we have for getting more of the word out. I totally understand the difference between a cost of printing and PDF, and there's a lot of people that if they want it, they'll print it out themselves. I know that going to the West Hyannis Post Office, I would frequently find it there, and I would when Nathan was there, I would say, Nathan, I didn't know this was out. And so the other thing is that I don't know if there are any downstairs in the main public information booth at Town Hall, but that's a place where some can go. And are you utilizing the 7 village libraries? Because that's a great place. And the libraries have an interlibrary delivery system. So unless you want to go to all 7 libraries, you can drop them off with one library and ask that they be distributed amongst the other libraries. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions for particular things that are on your mind as far as how you'd like to get the word out further.
Neil?
No, I
You're-
think that
You're our brain trust here.
I'm not a brain trust. I'm just, it just seemed like when you only can print a limited number, and we actually have no feedback as to who gets them and what they do with them. The PDF, given the penetration of the internet within the Barnstable residential community, seems like an opportunity, to the degree that we can put it on the low cost or free channels that are available to the town, like the Facebook page, things of that nature, the newsletters, e-news, Thrive, etc., and increase the awareness of the PDF. That's really all I was suggesting might be helpful. Clearly, the printed press isn't growing, but that which is on the internet is, and clearly, to me at least, it's something that we need to learn more about and how to make that effective as a communications message for the overview report, which is meant to be for the public. So that was, simply the suggestion, and anything that the communications group has the capability to do with their lack of budget, which I do understand, I think can benefit, and then we can track this. I think that's the one question I have is, can we track, the number of downloads of the PDF? We know that there's 350 copies of the printed so far, and I can share with the group, based upon what Mark told me this morning and such. We have had no one fill out the 3-question online survey as to what they thought of it and where we could improve it, nor have we gotten any emails to the CFAC website asking or inquiring for more information. So, we now have the opportunity to see if we might have a more internet responsive group via the PDFs, and to see how that distribution works, so that as we do next year's, we'll have a better idea of who we're designing this for and what we want to get out of it. Is it too long? Is it too detailed? Certainly the reports similar to that I've found, based upon Mark's explaining where he got the idea from, because these are done apparently across the nation, not by every town, but many of them are much shorter. And I'm wondering, is that a hint? Or is that just that people haven't been as comprehensive as we have? So I think it's a learning experience that I'm trying to get us to.
Neil, or Lynn, how many people have downloaded the PDF from the town website? Do we know that?
So I don't have that information yet. Kevin DeColibus, who's our webmaster, just updated our subscription to, he upgraded our Google Analytics program so that we should be able to get those numbers. But he didn't have anything to share with me by the close of business today.
Okay.
So I will, it is something that I'm going to be keeping track of. The other thing is that when, we're going to be introducing it in this week's e-newsletter. So either the questions or the survey that you were talking about as to how to improve, that may be something, because usually when we run something, we run it a couple of times. We don't just run it once and done. So we
Yep.
would run it a couple of times. And then the third or fourth time that we do, we could include some of those questions in the e-newsletter or on
Yeah.
Facebook, which might, you know,
Yeah, that would trigger more
a few
interest.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
So we've done that before and it's worked out quite well. So we would be happy to do that this time around as well.
Okay, so the good way to do, as you collect information about downloads and stuff, is just funnel it to Mark, and Mark can email it to all of us.
I will do that.
Unless someone else has a better idea how to get the information that you and the webmaster accumulate over time. But I think it's great that if I open up the Town of Barnstable homepage today, there's a mention of a CFAC meeting, and there is a mention of the report. So those are great improvements. That I further to what Neil said, it doesn't surprise me that we haven't gotten a lot of questions, a lot of reaction, because this is pretty dry stuff. But what I say to people that I talk to is, hey, this is your tax dollars at work. So you should not just assume that you write your checks once a quarter and all will be fine. If you want to be a knowledgeable, involved citizen, you should pay attention to where the dollars go and what some of the pressures are on the town in managing the finite supply of property tax dollars. So one of the things that Kelly did, and Lynn, I'm sure you had started this, was, she on part of her website, she's focused on people who are going to hook up to the sewers and what they need to do. To the extent we can bring this kind of information down to the level of the individual citizen, and I'm not quite sure how we would do that, maybe with anecdotes or stories, but that's a good way to engage people, if you can take some dry material and then make it real for the average person in his or her daily life.
Yeah, no, it's just if I can piggyback on what Hector, I was going to use the word sexy. You guys aren't sexy at all. You're incredibly boring, incredibly boring. And
my kids say the same thing.
Yeah, no, it just nobody has any interest, and nobody even knows you exist.
Yeah.
I even asked, Mark, not Mark, Mark Els, when he said the other day when we were reviewing the strategy, we have this open budget. And you go to this open budget and immediately you're lost, because if you want to look at this open budget, you better have a financial background. So, and I mean, I think that's what the beauty of Kelly's presentation was, that she dumbed down the engineer speak, which also is incredibly boring. People don't have time to wrap their heads around these complicated things. And my God, the numbers that you guys deal with, you glaze over in 30 seconds probably. So you've got to present it in a way that grabs people. And like I think, Hector, you're onto it, which is relating it to people's lives, saying, here's what you pay. I mean, I think it's startling that, and I don't remember the numbers right now, but what are we taking $145 million from just the property taxes, or is it higher than that? I think it's even higher. I mean, that should resonate. These people, all of our citizens, are paying the preponderance of our things. So, I don't know, maybe you want to hire Kelly, do something like that. But
I was going to say, when Mark Mill makes his presentations, he adds humor to them. He's giving, information, but people understand what Mr. Millen is saying. There's a reason why he's one of the most revered finance directors in the state.
This is true.
He's just so brilliant. We're just so lucky to have him. And I worked with him in my previous life when I ran the Hyannis Area Chamber of Commerce. But we're really lucky because Mark does get it like next meeting with the school committee and the town council, talking about the state of the town finances, or the financial condition of the town, Mark really gets the points across that people can understand. But there may be some way, if there are certain facts that you want to get out, there may be some way for us to do that and utilize our government access channel television to create something that's more that will not tug at their heartstrings, but be more relatable to what the average citizen is looking for. Because a lot of what our government access channel does is storytelling, and that's what connects people to government. When we tell things that could be very dry, but we do it in such a way that it's relatable.
Can you
Yeah.
track viewership of government access channel?
We can't track what actually airs live on the television. What we can track is number of views that are streamed through our video on demand. And we also have a YouTube channel, and almost everything that we do goes up on the YouTube channel. So that there are multiple ways for people, because there's so many people have been cutting the cord, that we want to make sure that people have access to things. The other thing is that people can also stream live on the website. Unfortunately, the program that we use that for doesn't tell us how many people are streaming at one time.
Yeah, I think those interview programs are just really nice. They're so low key and so informative. But I want to share a positive anecdote about our non-sexy report. I belong to the Hyannis Rotary, and we invite Mark Elves once a year to talk about town government and what's happening. And then we follow it up by inviting Mark Milne. So when and he is just fabulous, as you know. So when our report came out, and of course, since I'm a member, everybody knows that I do finance. I have never seen so much enthusiasm for this report. I put it down and it was gone, because they keep track of it all the time. And so they ask. So it's just a matter of familiarity. And so there's this one little group in town that loves the town budget. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. My words, I don't want to have them taken incorrectly, was that, there's different audiences. I think your report is fantastic myself. I think it's really well done and absolutely the kind of report you'd want to see. But if you're trying to reach a broader audience, it's got to read like a People magazine. It's got to be a little different for a broader audience. So it depends on what audience you're trying to reach. Are you really trying to have a broad reach? Do you care? I mean, that's kind of the first question, what audience are you trying to reach, Lily? Because, I agree what you produce is very good, but there seems to be a desire on your part to reach a broader audience. And you may have reached the extent of who you're going to reach with your current product, and the product has to morph slightly if you want to go beyond that. And what will be the gains from doing it? What is the effort put into that, and what will you gain?
Well, it essentially is a summary of everything that we collect and how we spend it. And for those who are interested in it, I think it's fine. I'm not sure that we want to make it people friendly, because essentially it's a budget. It's the finances of the town. And so we could discuss it and see how we can change it. We changed the title this year, thanks to Neil and Chris. These are your taxes and this is how we spend it. So it's a little bit better. It's a little bit more approachable, but thank you for your input. Lynn, thank you for helping us with the website and all of that. And let's see if more people tune in. through the PDF. Let us
Yeah.
know.
So give us, a couple of weeks before we start sending out data, because the
Okay.
social media and the e-news will hit this week for the first time. And we know that sometimes it takes a little bit, and multiple hits. We'll probably look to do something on the app sometime next week. And, because people get their information in a variety of ways, one size does not fit all. So we know that sometimes people need to hear things 2, 5, 7 times before they finally decide that it's something that they are interested in.
Right. Thank you very
Lynn,
much
what's
for all
the
your help.
circulation? What's the circulation of the e-news?
About 6,000.
6,000.
Yeah.
And you say you're gonna, in the Friday edition, you're gonna spotlight this report, or
We are. Yeah.
will there be a link to, if somebody wants to download the PDF, will there be a link in the e-news?
There will. Almost everything in e-news is clickable links.
Right.
And I've also already written the intro for this week, and I have it broken down as one of the items that's inside this week's issue.
So I for one would be very interested to see the number of downloads, or how the number of downloads go up once that 6,000 people get your report on Friday. So, but yeah, it'd be helpful, as you get various data, if you could just feed it to Mark and we could see it, that might give us food for thought in terms of other ideas that we might ask you about for other ways to get publicity. But I agree with Lillian that, this it is the town budget, and if you dumb it down too much, it's just not going to be useful. So, I always say that we write this for knowledgeable citizens who want to follow their the town government, and especially follow where their tax dollars are going. But that may be a finite number of people. Other people just taxes, just another bill they have to pay. They don't really think about where the money is going. So.
Well, Lynn, let us know how this thing turns out in a couple of weeks. And thank you for your help with this. And if you have any more suggestions based on that, let us know. Neil has a comment.
Yeah, I was wondering, on e-news and the other publications you do you have anything in the way of a profile that you can attach to who downloads this? I mean, one of the issues that was brought up, which I think is exactly spot on, is who are the people that are interested in what is there? And then parallel to that is, I think one of the things that Hector's kind of talking to indirectly is, and who do we want to reach? I mean, and if we know who those people are and we can tune our messages to those people and get it to them. Right now, I see this as it's probably correct what Hector and Lillian are saying, which is it's meant for the more people who are not looking for sexy, they're looking for numbers. And I'm wondering if that audience can be supplemented by the broader audience presenting, and can your data provide us information about who is interested now?
Yeah, so a lot of our data comes through IP addresses, which doesn't tell you much about who it is that's downloading the information. I can tell you that because I'm the one that handles the town main mailbox, that when I get all the out of office messages from people who, when the email goes off, and we have bank presidents receiving other town managers from other towns. Sandwich and Nantucket come up all the time. We have a lot of people that work for state government who are getting our e-news. There are a lot of realtors who are getting e-news. There are, bankers and realtors tend to be out of the office a lot because those are the messages that we get. But there's a lot of those kind of folks. And then there's a lot of folks that live elsewhere on a year-round basis, and they're seasonal residents that we get as well, because there's a number of things that have come back from New York. But because of the IP addresses, I don't know that we would have any other data, but I can find out from our webmaster if whether or not there's a way to get additional information from it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if when people sign up, do you get the IP address from where they signed up, and can you link that?
Yeah, I'm going to have to find out, because we just changed over to Constant Contact as delivering. It used to be that it was through the town's email server, and because of
Oh.
issues with that,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find out what we have access to and what we don't.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
That's a
And
great
thank you
question,
for-
though.
Thank you for everything you've done already. This is great.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me a roadmap. We're more than happy to help out anyone, but it just helps when we have a little bit more information. And like I said, look for it this week in e-news. Hopefully you're all signed up for e-news, and hopefully you're all on our app.
There you go.
I'm still learning how to turn off the beach notifications.
They shouldn't be, the beach notification shouldn't be coming in, but they're also sending the recreation cancellations. Is that what you're getting? Yeah, they're sending it to everybody that signed up for anything rec. So sorry.
No, it's great.
Do other members of the committee have any comments or questions of Lynn? Chuck? Chris? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was nice to see you all.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you,
all.
Lynn.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Now, before we move on, I want to introduce Teresa Santos to everybody. So if you there she is. Where are you?
I was hiding.
Oh, I can't find you. Anyway, Teresa is part of our staff. She's on the staff, and she will be helping us out. Her
Hi,
first,
everybody.
where are you?
Can't see you, Teresa.
I can't see you, Teresa.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Sometimes my visual goes away, so I apologize. But
You're
I'm
not
hoping
a-
to help you get caught up on many of your minutes. So I will do my best.
Oh, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yes. And you can call any one of us to clarify.
I just might do that.
All right. All right, moving on. Is there any correspondence from any members of the committee?
So I do have one. So I've circulated Griffin's presentation from a couple of weeks ago to some people in town, and one person sent in some detailed comments. See if I can find this. Detailed comments on his presentation, and this is obviously somebody who's, I think he or she lives in Centerville somewhere, and is concerned about the water quality of Lake Wequaquet. And much like some people think over in Catuit that Catuit should be a priority, this person thinks that not enough priority is being given to Lake Wequaquet. And I'm not expressing, but I do have a 2-page detailed email with comments on each page of Griffin's presentation. So this is not really a CFAC item, but maybe Mark.
Could you forward that to Griffin?
Yeah, I could forward it to Griffin. I have to, so far the person is anonymous to me, because this came via another citizen in town. So I've asked to get the person's name and contact details, but the person obviously pays a lot of attention to the rollout of CWMP. So Mark, I guess my question for you is, what should I do with this information other than obviously sending it to Griffin?
Yeah, Hector, that's what I would do, is just share those comments with the town engineer.
Yeah.
We get a
Right.
lot of anonymous comments,
Yeah.
and how do you respond to anonymous?
Yeah,
It's good to
Exactly.
know, good to hear what people are thinking, but
Yeah.
we encourage them to provide contact information so that we
Yeah.
can help them understand things. So,
Yeah.
but if they want to remain anonymous, that becomes very difficult for us to respond.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm not gonna circulate unless I wanna have a phone conversation or a meeting with this person and understand his or her questions in a little bit more detail before I know Griffin is extremely busy, other people in DPW are extremely busy, so unless I'm convinced it's a legitimate set of comments, I don't wanna spread it, but so that was just my question. I found Griffin's presentation very, very interesting, and I think we ought to have him back on a regular basis, especially as plans change for the town.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree with that, and I think we should also have regular updates on the water quality.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, this
Yeah.
is critical.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Kelly helped me locate was the Cape Cod water quality data, which the Cape Cod
I-
Commission actually collects from everybody. That is a quantitative measure of every single watershed in multiple places on each watershed, which quantifies the level of nitrogen and actually I think also of several other things in each watershed in each area, which based upon Wendy's question about, or worry about that they're not that area is not being prioritized correctly. I think if people started to plot that data and track it, I don't think the tracking is going to show much change over time. I've gone through it almost all. It's not exactly user friendly, but I think that will help people better understand where the problems are. It turns out the highest problem is up in Barnstable Harbor.
really.
Yes.
In terms, problem defined as
The
highest.
highest level of nitrogen.
Nitrogen.
No. Mark, am I wrong?
Yeah, it's not even part of the comprehensive wastewater management plan as far as sewering because of the lack of nitrogen in that area in town. So
Lack of nitrogen.
there's so much flushing that occurs up there as well. It's not the same. It's not nearly the same levels as what you're seeing in the estuaries in the southern part of town. Those are what are being addressed. Nitrogen
So-
loading is not a high impact issue in Barnstable Harbor.
So Neil, there's a disconnect between what you just said and what Mark said.
I recognize that. And I guess that's why I think someone other than me should be actually plotting that and tracking it over time. When I went through it, there is certainly a problem on the south, but around Sandy Neck is the highest level of nitrogen that I see in the data.
Really?
So
Well,
I may be wrong, and I'm not the guru on this stuff, but I do think that starting to track that quantitatively would be very useful because the issue you're bringing up, Hector, of everyone's thinking that they're in the worst shape, and to the point you've made in the past, which is we should be prioritizing to the degree possible and is practical the areas of greatest need. I don't know how. I haven't seen any data other than what Kelly led me to as to where the greatest need is.
And your read of the data is the greatest need is Barnstable Harbor?
That was the highest nitrogen level, and I can send you what I found. And I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I'd like to see it done officially. I think it would answer a lot of questions for a lot of people, such as including your anonymous person, where I'm
Right.
sure they don't have data.
Right.
Yeah, I think, Neil, that would go a long way. I know what I hear from people what they use as their bar to judge whether it's bad is I can't swim in my pond. That's you know, the end of the, I can't swim in my pond, so my pond's the
Right.
worst. And that's as simple as it gets. So I think,
Yeah.
Neil, you're absolutely right. And, you know, you're kind of stunning me too, because I've heard Mark Ellis make so many presentations, and he said it's all our southern embayments. I've never heard Barnstable or Sandy Neck mentioned. So that's something quite new.
Well,
Well, I
Neil,
can,
Neil, I'll take a crack at it, but not right this second. Because I've been
I'll send you
working
what
on
I
it.
found.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'll be
and I think that's really what I'm asking for is the data seems to be there, and has been looked at in the past, I guess. I think it's something to track over time, and it would be kind of a help in trying to sort some of these things out. There needs to be an overlay, of course, what's practical. I mean, the way the sewer installations are laid out from an engineering point of view makes total sense. But obviously, several people are not happy with that.
Well, let's take a look at it and see what we find. Okay.
Should we talk about
Mark,
upcoming
wait,
meetings?
wait. Mark, do you have any communication for us?
That next Thursday evening's town council meeting is a joint meeting with the Barnstable School Committee, as required by our charter every year. We have a joint meeting to review the financial condition of the town, in order to create a coordinated budget planning with the school committee. And so we'll be reviewing, we'll have a comprehensive financial overview. Not sexy. You know, the numbers are the numbers. It's meant to be serious financial
Absolutely.
conversation. And so you know, that's coming up next Thursday evening.
Okay. When will the school do another enrollment count?
October 1st, they had, all school districts had to submit their numbers to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Yeah,
And DESE will release that information sometime in the next few weeks, because that information is going to be used in the Chapter 70 funding
Right,
formula.
yep.
Which usually comes out in the month of, towards the end of January, as part of the governor's budget proposal.
Yeah,
So
that was my question that led up to the impact on Chapter 70. Okay. Thank you. We had talked about a couple of issues to discuss. Mark, what would you consider the most pressing for us to get up to speed in preparation for the next budget cycle?
well, I think we've reviewed the latest closeout of the fiscal year.
Right,
We've had a presentation of the budget projection for fiscal year
Right.
25 at your last meeting. We can follow that up with, you know, a review of the capital trust fund and what our projected funding capacity is for our capital program going forward. And I think we've recently had I think I provided you a few meetings ago, you know, the updated comprehensive wastewater management plan funding.
right.
That's also going to be part of both of those will be part of our presentation next Thursday evening at the joint meeting. So I think that's what we'll do, is I can review that presentation more thoroughly with this group at your next meeting on the 25th, I believe it is.
The 23rd, yeah.
23rd.
Yeah, yes, that would be great. So you will review with us the presentation that you make at the next town council meeting, which is the joint with the school.
Yes.
Okay, so there we have it. That's it. Have Hector, would you be
Yeah.
willing, will you be available to chair the next meeting on the 23rd?
So I'm gonna be in Memphis, Tennessee on the 23rd. And I was just noting, that conflict on my calendar. That's our last night with our oldest daughter and her family and the 2 grandkids, so I'm not sure I can attend that meeting.
Okay. Oh, well, I am 8 hours away and with no Zoom. Chuck, are you here?
Hello,
You're muted, Chuck. Unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
unfortunately, will be here, so I guess I can try to fill your shoes if you need me to.
No, you will be wonderful. We have a new member coming. His name is Jim Spruill. He's been approved by the town council, and all he has to do is be sworn in. So if we're lucky, he will be here.
Awesome.
So you're in charge, Chuck.
Words
How many
that-
members
that-
do we need to have that meeting?
5.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Jackie and the new member both will have to attend as well.
That's correct.
and what about
Wendy?
Wendy?
Is Wendy still part of the committee?
Well, you
or-
know, Wendy actually,
He was reappointed.
she was reappointed.
Okay,
Oh, good.
So
Then I
somebody
will,
should,
I
somebody should
will-
just give her a heads up that,
No,
if
I
at
will,
all possible,
I will email her and Jackie and make
Okay.
sure that they can make it.
okay,
So, thank you very much, and I hope you have a good trip to Memphis.
thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other thing to come before the committee? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Is there a second?
second,
Second?
Chuck, will you take the roll, please?
I will. Lillian,
Yes.
Hector,
Yes.
Chris,
yes.
Neil,
Yes.
and Chuck is yes.
Thank you very much, everybody.